we're going to take a few moments and look at this lesson 7 of this 8-part series of marijuana education and try to see how we can learn to deal with obstacles and triggers. Relapse obstacles and mental gymnastics. I want to read a quote here. It says, "Know thyself, know thy enemy. 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories." Well, we have to understand that if we're struggling with this thing called addiction, no matter how many times we have tried and failed, that we can overcome this thing. We just have to learn the tools and use them and build a support system that we will talk about a little later here. Let me read this. It says, if overcoming addiction is like a war, then it is crucial to understand the enemy, your brain. Your brain will deceive you, play to your fears, and basically do everything it can to convince you to continue to smoke. I want to talk about triggers for a second here. It says triggers are things that cause you to relapse. It is important to be aware of your triggers. And we have to know whatever our triggers are. In recovery, they say that we have to avoid certain people, certain places, and certain things. I tell people all the time, we just can't say those 3 things. We have to identify who those people are that we have to avoid. We have to identify with some specificity what those things are and where those places are, and do whatever we can to avoid them. And I want to talk about some emergency relapse strategies here. One of the first things that we have to do is play the tape all the way through. We talked about the brain earlier. There is a part of the brain in the frontal lobe called the pleasure reward center. And all that part of the brain does is remember pleasure. It's like we can hear a song or smell something and it will trigger a memory. And sometime from way back from school or whatever the case may be, but we will remember that. It just triggers that. And normally we remember, those of us who are in recovery, only the pleasure part of that. The brain is a muscle, so we have to work on the part of the brain that has cognicity, which has reason, logic. So when we work on that, it builds that part of the brain up. So playing the tape all the way through to the consequences will help us. Because they say addicts are consequence-driven people. So we have to remember that when we had spent all our money up. We have to remember when we went to jail or whatever those consequences are. We have to move past just the pleasure to get to that part where it was consequences, where there was pain. We have to build a support system. We have to have some people who we can talk to who will help us to get to the consequences, or to get to that, hey, you are doing well in recovery. Let's remember that. Let's remember those victories. When those times where we feel like giving up, we have to have some encouragers. We have to have a support system of people who will help us. Number 3, put down here breathing exercises. We have to learn to relax. When we're going through and we're triggered, our anxiety level raises up and sometimes we don't know what to do. So we have to take a moment to just relax and to breathe and take a moment to be in the present and to remember how grateful we are that we have had this time where we're not using. They say a grateful addict is a sober addict. So we have to take time to breathe. We have to take time to do a gratitude list. The final one, we have to distract ourselves. We have to learn to do something. When you quit doing anything, there is a void, there is some time. And if we don't replace that with some things, some positive things, then we're stuck in this void. In our country and in our world, we have went through this season of COVID where we were all stuck in the house and we didn't know what to do. It's kind of the same thing with addiction. When we stop, we're stuck. And we have to find some things to replace, to distract ourselves. Maybe that's exercising. Maybe that's writing. Maybe that's listening to music, calling a friend. It's different for everybody, but we have to find some things to distract ourselves. And I just wanted to take a couple of moments to talk about triggers and obstacles as we look at this thing called marijuana education. There will be some information in the box that will help you to be able to get in contact with us if you know someone who is struggling with any type of addiction. But today we're talking about marijuana education and addiction. But give us a call and we will do what we can to help. Thank you.